year, I was the first South Asian to run across the country. In the last 5 years, I've run over 21,000 kilometers. Just in training and other endeavors, I've raised over $300,000 for veterans and first responders struggling with PTSD and other various mental health related issues. So I'm such. Now I'm an ultra endurance athlete and entrepreneur. I'm Canadian. I live in the Vancouver area and just retired from law enforcement for 20 years.
Why do you think that you had that moment? You've had a moment that most people don't. And I think that hopefully a lot of people listening are maybe wondering, how do they get to that moment?
I was struggling with my mental health. And as a guy, I was in my early 40s at the time. And life was hard, man. Like, I'm getting up and working, and I was going through a separation and a divorce, and I was in the hurt locker. I was not good. Like, I was like suicidal, ideation, extremely depressed, anxiety. Like, it was really debilitating. So running became hard. And mentally, I was drained. It's not about me, man. It's about everybody else. The reality is anyone can do what I've done and probably do it better if they wanted to. What I was more feeling was like, shit, man, I said I was going to do this thing and now everyone's going to think I'm full of shit. That's what I was thinking.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Marked Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and this is my man, Sachin Latti. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me on, bro.
Dude, I'm excited. So, guys, a little context. I met Sach. We were in this... what would you say? The Real is there to support men's mental health, correct?
Yeah.
But everybody's a part of it. We have female allies. Anyone can get involved. It's really just a global play to support men, correct?
Yeah, and once a month we kind of get together virtually, just chat and have conversations and make connections just like we have, and then see where they go. Yeah.
So we met on one of those events. Hit it off. Sach is a cool guy. I was like, man, we got to chat more. We did. And I was like, you got a story you got to tell. I'd love for you to come on the podcast. So here he is graciously giving us his time today to share some amazing knowledge and experiences with us. So Sach, I'd love to jump in with you, man. Can you tell the people a little bit more about who you are, a little of your story, and just kind of what you're building now?
Yeah, man. So I'm such. I guess now I'm an ultra endurance athlete and entrepreneur. Started off. First off, I'm Canadian. I live in Canada. I live in the Vancouver area and just retired from law enforcement for 20 years. Retired earlier this year. I was an immigration and customs officer. Worked at the Vancouver airport. Yeah, I mean, I did that, and before that, I lived in the States. Went to high school in just north of Dallas, Plano, Texas. Was a wrestler, and eventually moved back to Canada after high school. Stumbled around a little bit, went to school, didn't go to school, joined the military for a little bit of time in Canada, left that after a year, found law enforcement, stayed there for 20, and then throughout that time, got married. I did bodybuilding, jiu-jitsu, and became an ultra runner, and here we are.
That's it. The man just enjoys the physical aspects of life. There's never been a moment that he's looked at life and said, I don't think that thing is for me, because you've kind of done it all. I mean, what's the challenge that you've shied away from?
I don't know what it is, man. I think it's just curiosity that kind of gets me moving in a direction. I look at something, and if I get curious about it, I want to kind of do it. So I guess for me, the one thing I might have that is probably allowed me to do certain types of things is that the fear doesn't stop me of trying to engage into something. I just kind of go do it, despite how I might perform. Like, I'm not the greatest at anything, but I'll do it anyway.
I feel like I'm just talking to like almost an identical clone of David Goggins right now.
I mean, you wouldn't be the first person that kind of threw that at me, man. To be honest, it's like, I'm obviously, bald, kind of big, bodybuilder type of look. I'm not nearly as tall as him and don't have as an illustrious career as him, and not as fast as a runner, but, I'd be the knockoff David Goggins, I guess.
For the people that can't afford to work with the real David Goggins, we got my man.
I'm right here. I'm your, what's it? I'm your Timu David Goggins.
Timu Goggins. I love it, man. I like to tell people I'm a knockoff Tony Robbins. I'm like one 1/100th of the price, but somewhat as good. Yeah. But no, I mean, listen, aside from the looks, I think you have a very distinguished career of pushing yourself, right? Like that's kind of how David Goggins built his life, right? Everybody admires him because he's the guy that's like, who's going to carry the boats, and military straight into challenging himself, and he fights wildfires, and he's an ultra runner. Like it's a very unique lifestyle though, because there's very few people that can say that they've had experiences as extensive as yours. Like that's probably why people can compare you to David Goggins, because he's the only other one that anyone really knows. You're like a one of two in the world.
Yeah.
You're a very unique person.
I appreciate that, man. And you know what? I mean, I don't think I'm trying to be unique. I just, like you were talking before this, right? Like we can, certain people kind of just think differently, maybe, or kind of, want to think for themselves to a certain degree.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I've been doing primarily, really, I think, really focused in that area for the last 6 years. Because I mean, I'm like everyone else, man. I got married and law enforcement for 20 years, did the grind, and I got to a point, I think in about 6, 7 years ago, I was like, man, it's like I'm going through the motions. I'm getting up, going to work, um, you know, doing, serving the community and country in the way of, in law enforcement. But really, it was, a job, right? And I remember it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was working at the Vancouver International Airport, and I was canine handler towards the end of my career. And I was just, it was during some downtime, flights weren't coming in, and I was with my dog just standing by a carousel. And I was just kind of looking around, the empty sort of customs hall, and was looking at one of my colleagues, and I just thought, man, I was like, oh man, I need to get out of here. Like
Mm.
I don't want to die not trying more things. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And that kind of precipitated just an idea of trying to experience more out of life rather than just going through the motions of life. And I just started doing a bunch of different things. Started talking to people, registered for some ultra marathons, and you know turned it into something, I guess.
Why do you think that you had that moment? Because you obviously you've had a moment that most people don't. And I think that hopefully a lot of people listening are maybe wondering, how do they get to that moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, Look, man, I was struggling with my mental health, right? And as a guy, I was in my early 40s at the time. I'm pushing 50 now. And at the time, I was in around 41, 42. And life was hard, man. Like I'm getting up and working, and I was going through a separation and a divorce.
Mm.
And, I was kind of presented with the person that I actually was rather than the person that I thought I was. And that didn't sit well with me. I thought I was this tough guy, and I thought I could do a whole bunch of things. And to be honest, my ego was pretty inflated for really the lack of accomplishments that I had in my life. And I wasn't a good partner. Like a lot of things weren't really going positive, right? And I was just sitting at work, and that thought came to me, and I was like, man, like, what am I doing? Like,
Mm.
I wanna live a better life. And so what am I doing now that is preventing me from living the way I want to live?
Mm.
And so that's kind of what started a lot of things. And I just really thought about it a lot. And, I was chasing money. I was chasing, various different metrics, house, car. And I just thought, What's the point? Like, what am I doing?" And so I started thinking, okay, what do I actually want to do? Like, what do I want to do? And that came down to, at the time, let me try these ultras. Let me see if I can serve the community in a different type of way by raising awareness and funds for veterans and first responders struggling with mental health. And I kind of leaned into that. Now, I didn't know what it was going to turn into. I had no certainty about the future, but it felt natural to me to kind of go in that direction. It didn't feel
Mm.
forced. And so that really what started the journey. And look, man, like it's been 6 years, and I'm so proud of myself and happy that I made those decisions,
Mm.
because the experiences that I've had, I never would have had. And the people that I met, I never would have met. So it's
Yeah.
made my life much better. by taking a risk, I guess you could say, and moving in a different direction.
It's an interesting thing. I feel like a lot of guys, especially, but I think people in general, but I'll really target guys a little bit more for this, is when they're in the space where you were in, right? And you're like sitting here and you're like, that life it's not fulfilling right now. Like there has to be more, right? I feel like most guys go for the cheap dopamine hits instead of wondering how can they get to that space of like making their life something that feels better. They start thinking, well, how can I escape it more? Because now I'm aware that like it's kind of sucking. So instead of looking for ways to grow, they start looking for ways to, I don't know, get better dopamine hits, right? Start playing more video games. Maybe they're binging TV. Maybe there's more sexual activity, whatever it is. What do you think is the thing that maybe prevented you from getting into that? Like, what was there a quote? Was there a mentor? Was there a coach? Like, was there somebody helping you or just kind of giving you insights and being like, hey man, like, look at something bigger. Like, where did you start learning this perspective? Because a lot of people never develop it. A lot of people don't even get to this point.
Yeah, you're right, man. And look, I couldn't have done anything of it, like all of it by myself, for sure.
Mm.
When I first started this path, it was in 2019, 2020. And look, man, I was in the hurt locker. I was not good. Like I was like suicidal ideation, extremely
Mhm.
depressed, anxiety. Like it was really debilitating. And so for me, you know, I used to compete in bodybuilding, so I had an understanding of like controlling things. I had an understanding how I could control my diet, let's say for example. I knew how to do that. And I built sort of discipline around it to a certain degree. And so I used to drink, man. Like, I used to party and, get blackout drunk and so for me, I asked myself a question. I was like, man, look, I in my core, I feel like I'm a good dude. Why am I not doing good dude things?
Mm.
And then I just started thinking, okay, man, right now I'm really struggling mentally. I, Going through a divorce, I was the squeaky wheel in the marriage, basically the guy who created all the issues.
Mm.
And I have a daughter who's 2 years old at the time. And now I'm kind of going through this divorce, financially kind of strapped now, starting all over again. And
Mm.
in the Vancouver area, a lot of the houses have basement suites. So the house that I had with my ex-wife, I moved into the basement suite during the pandemic so that it would alleviate any issues from a rental sort of perspective. But for a mental health perspective, that wasn't good for me. And it also wasn't good for my ex. So that's kind of the context I was living in. Pandemic, getting locked down. And so for me, I was like, man, okay, listen, I'm not doing well. It's probably good. I'm just not gonna drink right now. Because if I start really going down that path, I don't know if I could come back. And so I made a commitment to myself. Okay, don't drink. Now, it doesn't mean I wasn't doing anything else that wasn't good. Like I was
Right.
promiscuous. I was doing a lot of other things that were kind of getting that dopamine fix. But I
Mm.
kept coming back to the physical because I had this I have a massive ego. And at the time it was extreme. I'd say it was somewhat toxic. I was trying to prove myself to a lot of things.
Mm.
And I came across, the running world and I thought, man, I can hammer this. Let me focus on something. And so I kind of just started playing with that. I just started running. I wasn't a runner, man. I wasn't a runner. I'm 41, 42 at the time. Hadn't ran a 5K race ever. And the last time I had ran was in high school on the wrestling team.
Right.
And so I thought, okay, man, let me see if I can do this, right? And so I started small, a few 5Ks a week. But what it gave me was a purpose, gave me a path forward, gave me a direction. And as I started doing that, I just kept doing it. And so over about a span of 8, 9 months to a year, I got to a decent level. I wasn't amazing or anything, but I was running about 70K a week, maybe 50 miles a week or whatever that is, right? And then I thought, man, I could see how it's helping regulate my emotions. I could see how it's, from a mental health perspective, how it was helping me. It was more because of that, right? That I saw that.
Right.
And I thought, man, if I'm struggling like this, there's got to be a lot of other dudes and women in the first responder space, in the veteran space that are struggling too.
Mm.
Okay, let me do something about it. And then I thought, so in Canada, we have something called Remembrance Day. I think it's Veterans Day in the United States, November 11th.
Mm.
And during the pandemic, we have Remembrance Day ceremonies, and people come out to commemorate Remembrance Day. And when that happens, a lot of funds get donated when people come out. And we have something called the Poppy Fund. And, that goes towards veterans struggling and whatnot. And
Sure.
so during the pandemic, the Poppy Fund was decimated because nobody was coming out and making
Mm.
these donations. So I thought, man, maybe I can raise money for the Poppy Fund. So I planned something out. November 7th, 2021, I was going to run from one town called Chilliwack, British Columbia, to the Vancouver airport, which was 100 kilometers.
Oh wow.
And so I was like, cool, man, let me see if I can raise money for this charity, right? And so I started training for that, maybe like all on my own, just doing all my own thing. And I started opening up my social media. I didn't have an open, I had a private social media account, Instagram, and I opened it up so I could start fundraising and doing some more social media. No freaking clue on how to do any of it because I'd never done anything like that ever.
Yeah.
I'd never fundraised before, never really did social media. So I'm like, I'm leaning into it. I'm starting to learn a bit, right? Anyways, long story short, I ended up training, and on November 7th, I ran that 100K. It took me about just under 15 hours and raised $21,000 to support veterans and first responders with PTSD. And then that really gave me, when I did that, I was like, oh man, I love this. I love to be able to do something for others, but also test myself.
Mm.
But I didn't know how to transition out of the workplace. So, anyways, this kind of started that journey. That was kind of the origin story of all of the things that I have done since. In the last 5 years, I've run over 21,000 kilometers just in training and other endeavors. I've raised over $300,000 for veterans and first responders struggling with PTSD and other various mental health related issues, all
Mm.
through one thing of me just trying to figure it out myself and what's organic and natural for me.
Mm.
Like that 100K, the following year, I ran 9 ultras in 9 months, raised 16K that year. The year after that, I ran 22 consecutive marathons across the province of British Columbia from Revelstoke to Victoria. And then in 2024, I ran 60 kilometers a day for 2 months, raised 25,000. And then last year, I was the first South Asian to run across the country. I ran from Victoria, British Columbia to St. John's, Newfoundland, and raised 216,000. And I ran an ultra marathon a day across the country in doing it. So all of that happened because I sat with myself and started asking myself some serious questions as to what I want to do.
Man, it's so interesting what gets sparked when people wonder about themselves and the way they could fit into the world, right? You had a thought about what would feel fulfilling or what would feel like it mattered to you. And I mean, for whatever reason, you settled on running, is it? But
Yeah,
I think,
it's
yeah,
interesting, right? I picked my poison, right? I picked the poison and I drank it.
right, right. I mean, but that's the thing. I think the cool thing about your story is that one, there's no right or wrong way. As Nike says, it's just do it, right? There isn't like, hey, and I always try to talk to people about this too, because there are people that come to me with the weirdest misconceptions of what they're supposed to do. They'll be like, oh, I'm sauning, I'm ice bathing, I'm face cold plunging, body cold plunging, I'm meditating every day, I'm reading every day, I'm journaling every day, I'm doing this every day. I'm like, why? They're like, well, because so and so said it was great to do. I'm like, okay, who the hell is so and so? Like, well, who? I'm like, yes, I do know who so and so is, but I'm asking, in the scheme of things, who the hell are they? Like, who cares? Who cares what they say is good? Most people in the personal development space are speaking from experience, or at least they should be.
Hmm.
I think there's the gurus that speak from knowledge, but there's the real development people that speak from, hey, this is what I did. This is how
Yeah,
my life changed.
agreed. And I want to kind of finish the answer because you asked me the question if anyone helped me along the way and
Mm,
was there any
please.
mentors? And the truth of the matter is, yeah. And so after I ran that first 100 kilometers, November 7th, 2021,
Mm,
the day after, I was so freaking depressed, man. Like I was maybe even worse than I was before because I had this path I wanted to go down. I just didn't know how to make it happen. I didn't know how
mm,
to make it work. I had no path forward. I'm working in this workplace. Like, you're working for the federal government. What do you do? Do you quit? Like all these different types of things, right? And I have, child support. I have all these different things. There's a lot going on. And I didn't really have too many friends anymore because like my friends in the workplace really started, we just weren't connecting as much anymore. I was struggling, and I'm sure you can understand, in some of these listeners, some people can be fairly prickly when they're struggling, and I wasn't the nicest guy to be around, man. And that's true, and I can acknowledge that I wasn't. But what was cool about that first 100K, I was on social media, and then I had this guy make a comment on one of the posts I did, and nothing crazy, just like one word kind of comments, awesome, or another post would be like representing conviction or something. He would always make these little comments. I was like, who is this dude, right? And then so I go to his Instagram account, and so he's a retired dude. At the time when I met him or started communicating with him, he was 58, and his name's Sean Taylor. And so he so I go to his Instagram account. It says retired tier one operator, 24-hour, world champion, business entrepreneur, all these different kind of cool things. And so for me, I kind of looked at the tier one operator aspect, and I thought, and for those of you who might be listening, Tier 1 Operator Canada has a special operations unit called JTF2. It's equivalent to Delta Force, so it's Tier 1 Operator, and he was a plank holder for the team. And what a plank holder is, in Canada, Special Operations Tier 1 unit was created in 1993, and he was the first member to be selected to be on that team when it was created. And so that's what a plank holder is. And so I started communicating with him, and I was like, man, if any, like maybe he can get me, maybe someone like that understands, because I felt like I couldn't relate to anybody. And so he and I started having conversations. And then in December of 2021, he was in transit actually from Haiti. He was doing some consulting work in Haiti, and he was en route back to his home, which is about 7-hour drive from where I live, and still in British Columbia, but up in the mountains. And his flight was canceled, and he ended up just being staying overnight again in Vancouver. And I just so happened to be at work that day, and so he and I were following each other on Instagram. He posts up a story, here my flight's canceled, anyone want to meet up for a coffee or something? So I hit him up, and so within an hour I met up with him because he was staying in a hotel next to the airport. And we, half an hour turned into a 3-hour conversation.
Wow.
And that conversation, he could clearly see that I wasn't doing well. And so he was just there to hold space, man, to be a dude, to hold space, and really exemplify, at least in my opinion, what leadership should be.
Yeah.
And so as we finished that conversation, and I asked him, I said, hey, man, are you cool can you continue this conversation? And he said, if you think it'll help, yeah, man, sure. So what we did for about 2 to 3 months, we would Zoom call each other probably 4 to 6 times a week, no time limit, just two dudes having conversations. And through that, I was very curious, and I wanted to understand how he lived his life. And I just started asking him questions. And as I started asking questions, he would give me his perspective. He wouldn't tell me what to do. He would just say, this is what I do. This is how I've lived in my life. These are some of my experiences, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And why it really resonated with me, because he had credibility, to your point. He lived a lot of different things. He wasn't what do you call it? Like, he wasn't like a intellectual in that way where he, cerebrally just thought of things. He did the things and had these experiences and could articulate specifically to that. So when you're saying to me, oh man, you got a lot of different experiences, this guy tenfold, even more. And so for me, I would ask a question that you would think would be, there's no way he could have an answer for this. He'd have a suggestion or an answer. So from a mentor perspective, it's probably my first mentor. And so I learned a lot about how to live life better for myself. What was better for me? Not doing what he did, but just using some of those frameworks and applying it into my own life.
Right.
And after about 2 or 3 months, I just, I wrote down my purpose. What should I do for my life? And I just got to work. And that's pretty much what happened.
It's interesting too, because sometimes we find mentors in unlikely places. I interviewed my mentor on the podcast recently, which was great. And I met him because a friend of mine invited me to an event that he was hosting. And he's like, hey, I want you to come. There's going to be some amazing people here. I was feeling a little down about myself. And he's like, I think you need a boost. Come to this event I'm hosting. I want you to come as my guest. And I'm going to invite you to the, exclusive. We have a speakers dinner for the speakers that are coming the next day. I want you to fly in a day early and come meet them. And it was the oldest guy in the room. And he just started asking me a bunch of questions about my life. And then he just started telling me what's wrong with my. He's like, you see, I asked you what you want. You didn't even tell me. You said things you'd like, but you didn't directly ask. He's like, you need to ask for what you want out of life. And I found myself going and asking him a bunch of questions throughout the time of the event. And then right before he left, I ran after him. I was like, will you mentor me? And he said, sure. But it's something that's interesting because you know what? I think that there are definitely people out there that are willing. But I guess the question that I have for you is, do you find that you have to be the guy that like asks and initiates it if you want a mentor, or do you find that mentors just kind of come and like pick people up randomly and are like, yeah, I'll help you?
No, I think you have to be on the path. At least in my opinion, right? Like my opinion is like any mentor worth their salt isn't going to waste their time with someone who's not going to action anything or even engage in the conversation.
Yeah.
So like if it's kind of a waste of their time, right? And so I look at real mentors, like real people who know what's up. They're like that kung fu master on top of a mountain. You got to earn your way to have that conversation. And when you get that conversation, you have to kind of, there's only so much you can have conversations with someone who's a mentor. And look, I mean, if they're legit mentors, they're busy, right? They got things going on in their own lives. And so if you're not taking steps to do something on your own time, they're not going to engage. They're not going to continue it.
Right.
So for me, it was more of like, it wasn't like, oh, I feel like I have to do these things. I wanted the information.
Yeah.
I wanted to do life better. I just didn't know how to or what steps I needed to take. So I was hungry. I wanted, like, I'm like, whatever I need to do, let's put in the work, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was fun having these conversations and then circling back a few weeks later or a week later, being like, hey, man, yeah, I did this, I did that. And then he would give another few, tips or suggestions or even hold me accountable, like give me the gears if I needed it. Or because for me, I'm that type of guy, right or wrong, that I have like I said earlier, I got a bit of an ego. And if I don't think you're switched on, I'm not listening to you, man. I'm not wasting my time either. And so if someone is switched on, and fortunately for me, I've been around a lot of different types of people and interviewed a lot of different types of people that I feel like I'm a pretty good judge and read on people within a short period of time. And when I met with Sean, I knew right off the bat I had never met anyone ever like that. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let me lean into this. So to answer your question, I think it's a two-way street, man. I think it's a synergistic thing. The mentee has to put in the work, has to seek it out, has to find the path. And the mentor essentially just kind of puts a spotlight on the path so that it's clearer to go down it.
It's an interesting thing too. I think, a lot of people that might want a mentor also fails to understand like what a mentor kind of is. I found that through even having my own mentors, a mentor doesn't want to tell you what to do. Like they just don't. And it's so funny because I remember when I first had a mentor, I would jump on the call and I'd be like, yeah, so like, what should I do here? And they'd be like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, well, nothing really, because I don't know what to do. And they would be like, all right, well, go and do something and then come back on a call with me. And it's the funny thing where you realize like a mentor isn't really there to like tell you what to do. They're not there to be maybe the better word is like a consultant. They're there to give you perspective on what you're already doing and then tell you what they think could be done that could be a little bit better. And so I really, I like that you showed up and you just asked all these questions and you were just hungry for knowledge, because I think that's the right way to have a mentor. And a lot of people don't realize that, which is why they probably don't have one. Let me ask you this, because I am curious too. I want to just bring it back real quick to your run-in thing. Mm-hmm. I remember reading or seeing that you ran 100 km a day for 81 days. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought this up. So the goal when I started planning the run across Canada in 2021 because I had no business even thinking I could do it. And
Yeah.
so I devoted 5 years to figure it out.
Wow.
And
That's
and when I say
insane.
devoted, I prioritized figuring out how to run across Canada above everything and everyone else. Right or wrong, that's what I did.
Sure.
And so the plan was to run 100 kilometers a day across the country. And so, which would likely be about 7,500 kilometers from coast to coast. And initially, when I came up with the idea, the goal was like in 2021, 2022, was to break the record for the fastest run across Canada. And so that's what I trained for. And when I started going down the path, as you move down it, things evolve and you become aware of different types of things. So as I started going down that path, things evolved and started doing more research and understanding how to do the run better. And so to for me to even have the record or attempt the record, it has to be a certain route, right?
Hmm.
And it takes you a certain direction. And so the direction for the record would take me out of the most populated area of the entire country, which would be the Greater Toronto area, and which has millions of people, and which is the hub of the country as it relates to money and donations and funding. And so for me, the goal wasn't, hey, look at me, I'm a dude breaking a record. The goal was, how do we create the most awareness and a
Right.
larger footprint? So when I found that out, I was like, okay, we got to change the plan. We got to go through Toronto. So now that takes the record off the table. And I was like, cool, I don't give a shit. Let's keep doing what we got to do, create the awareness. And then when we got closer to it, I'm still training for the 100K a day. I kick off first day, I ran 100 and we did that for a few days. But what I didn't consider out of all my planning and all of everything, I didn't consider the impact it would have on people on ground. I didn't think about people coming up to us or people stopping us or people wanting to have conversations. I just didn't think that would happen. I hoped it would happen, but I didn't think it would, right? And so in the first week, I was getting stopped a lot. And we had this huge RV that was deckled out. It was professionally branded. It said mental health. Like it was like a beacon. We'd be driving, people would come to it. We would hold space, have conversations. And so, man, like for me, I'm not the best runner in the world, and so for me to have people have stop and have conversations, it's extremely challenging to get the full 100K in. So
Sure.
then I sat down with the team. I was like, okay, man, this is getting really hard, and it's getting harder than I want it to be in the sense of like, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Are we even connecting with people? And because so one thing happened that really didn't sit well with me. I'm running. Someone wanted to stop, talk and have a conversation. And it wasn't like, oh, look at you. Hey, you're amazing. It wasn't those types of conversations. It was like they were struggling. And some people were, dealing with their own stuff. And I remember I said to one person, I was like, hey man, I gotta run. I can't continue the conversation. Go talk to someone in the team. And I kept moving, and then that bothered me the rest of the day.
Mm.
And so I said, man, we can't do that. We can't say we're talking about mental health and I'm running past people and not to them. So we're changing everything. So we pivoted. We changed all the messaging and everything within 3 days. And so what we ended up doing was decided to run two people, not past them. I was going to run an ultra a day, so anywhere from 50 to 60 kilometers a day, and get through the country that way. And then when there were quiet, sort of like areas where there was really no population, we'd maybe either run to the next city or drive to the next city, set up shop in the bigger populated area, stay there, do activations, connect with people. So what ended up happening was by doing it that way, we were able to connect with more people, have
Mhm.
more conversations, bring up the conversation of mental health and the struggles, and hold space, man. We had no word of a lie, man. I think about 5,000 individual conversations on the run across Canada and 55 cities that I ran through that were, where we had these conversations.
Mm.
And I am extremely proud that we made that pivot within the first week because that's the right play and that was the right thing to do for us. It wasn't, initially when I started this, it was about me. It was about my ego. It was about me setting a record, me being this dude doing a thing.
Mm.
The reality was when we got to the start line and halfway through the first week, I was like, it's not about me, man. It's about everybody else. And I think by doing that, we were able to create more awareness. We were able to raise respectable amounts of money for this run. But not only that, we made connections with people that we were continuously in conversations with, both large donors and philanthropists that now are part of the journey with us as I move forward. So to answer your questions, yeah, I did that for the first few days, but then we made a change.
It's an interesting thing too. I'm personally curious to understand, how do you get to that point where you determine, obviously you said it didn't sit right with you, but how do you get to a point where you determine like when something is impacting the mission or not? Because, you know, I think from what I hear as you're describing this, you're saying, well, I was running and the mission, you know, you said it was about you. And it seems like the mission is like, I have to get this run done because that's how I'm raising the awareness. But then you shifted and you said, well, the mission is to actually talk to people and get them involved in the run. Now, do you think that I'm going to guess you didn't, which is why you did it this way. But do you think that there was any part of you that was still feeling like, you know, by me not running as much, I'm creating less awareness because it's creating less exposure because I'm running less and in less time. And, you know, now the mission slows. But obviously, I think you probably had a different change of heart. So I'm just curious, how did you come to that conclusion that the mission had to shift, that the mission wasn't maybe as impactful as you thought it would be, aside from the fact that you just felt like it was wrong?
Yeah, I think so. Most people don't have a clue on what an ultra is. So the general population,
Yeah.
60K or 100K is all the same shit. Number one. Number two, so that from that perspective, it didn't really affect me, like changing the numbers in terms of creating more awareness. An ultra is an ultra. I mean, everyone kind of gets the distance, but the amount more, that didn't really affect the decision making. What I was considering was what I was more feeling was like, shit, man, I said I was going to do this thing and now everyone's going to think I'm full of shit. That's what I was thinking. Wasn't so much about the awareness because I knew that we would do it. I knew that we would create the footprint. It was more internal. It was more like, man, I committed to doing this thing. Now I'm changing. What are people going to think? They're going to say I can't do it. They're going to say like all the downstream things.
Yeah.
That's what was probably bothering me for about 2 weeks after the decision was made. But eventually, I realized that was the right move in the sense of what the actual mission, the actual goal was to create awareness and raise funds. It wasn't, and so we could still do it in a way where we're doing it with the lesser kilometers because you're engaging with more people. I wouldn't have been able to have 5,000 conversations. Those are 5,000 touch points now. Those are 5,000 people I can talk to. Those are 5,000 people. If I fly to a city within the country, I can know somebody. And I'm not talking about big cities. I'm talking about rural cities I can fly to.
Yeah, amazing.
And now have someone to have a conversation with. So to answer your question, it was more me, what was going through me and my own ego that was affected by the decision. But I knew it was the right decision.
I love that. I think that that's really one of the most important things too, is being able to get your heart truly into all of this. So let me ask you this, because I am curious, for you as you're doing this, what was the hardest part of the run? Was it physical? Was it mental? Was it something else? Was it a story you heard? Like what really stuck with you and made it difficult?
It's hard to say what's the most difficult or challenging because it was like a lot of different things. I was burnt out before the run even started because if you can consider, it's hard, like I can say it and I'm not sure if people truly understand. I sacrificed everything to make it happen. I devoted everything for 5 years towards one goal. And every sort of thing that I did, the 100 kilometers, 22 marathons, all those things were all training blocks to prepare me for the ultimate run. And so whenever I'd meet people, like obviously I was divorced, right? So, I would meet, go on dates here and there and just kind of, I was alone a lot of the time, but, I'd still go out on dates. And, inevitably the conversation would be like, oh, where's this going, right? And the reason why I'm sharing this is kind of illustrates where my head was at. And every person I spoke to, if it were a relationship of some kind, I would say, okay, look, here's my priority list: run across Canada, my daughter, everything else. And so I prioritized it quite a lot. So I
Yeah.
sacrificed a lot. So I missed out on a lot of things in the sense of like trying to go towards this goal. And so I was training all the time. I wasn't a runner, so I had to make up for time that I didn't have on my feet. And most ultra marathoners are doing it for 10 years before they're
Mhm.
really exceptional.
Yeah.
And so for me, I had 5 years or less. So I had to do 5 years worth of running, but turn it into 10 years. And
Right.
so I was training all the time. And so in every run or every training that I did was with the pressure of the run across Canada. It was never fun. It was not like, oh, I'm going for a run today. It was like, okay, I got to get this run done properly, right? Like it was work almost to a certain degree. And then so I was already beat up before the run started. I had bursitis in my right hip. I had like the beginnings of development of Haglund's deformity in my left foot, which is essentially a huge calcification at the Achilles and the ankle area, which limited mobility and created massive inflammation. So
Mhm.
running became hard. And mentally I was drained because I was organize everything logistically. How do I get the funds for this? How do I pay for it? How do I create a team around it? Because like anybody who's listening to this who knows anything about ultras, when you have a crew, your crew knows who you are. The
Mm.
crew understands everything. The crew
Right.
has been involved with other ultras and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
None of the people around me had experienced anything in terms of the ultra world, and everyone that
Mhm.
I knew were all new to me. So they were all like the person that was my right hand man, Glenn. I met him 2 months before. Now he and I are close friends now. But now put that context. I'm about to do something, the biggest thing in my life. I have people around me that I don't quite trust yet because they haven't really I just put this thing together in two
Yeah.
months, figuring out funding, all that kind of stuff. So now all of that together, by the time June 16th rolled around, I was already bagged, man, mentally. I was already burnt. So then, so then obviously I was very emotional the entire 81 days.
Sure.
And then holding space for people and taking on other people's burden. You know what that's like, man, when you're listening to really challenging things, I absorb it, man.
Yeah.
And so that you feel it.
Yeah.
And so what was challenging, the body being beat up, I'm kind of used to that. I kind of understand that. Um, the the pressure of being able to perform was challenging, man.
Mm.
And what people would think if I quit or if I stopped. Like all of these things were really, really hard. The
Right.
stories were the best part of it. Hearing people's story, even if they were um, difficult stories, that's why I wanted to be there. It just happened through the lens of a run across the country.
Do you have one story that really left a lasting impression on you? You met so many people.
I have tons of them. One of them, so within the first week, I think it's the first week, I was running towards Kelowna. Kelowna is in the interior of the British Columbia. It's kind of like a summer beach town kind of thing.
Hmm.
Hot spot for, people going out and going to the lake and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And in British Columbia, the climate's very different. When you get into the interior, it gets a bit in the summertime, it gets more like a desert. It's really dry and it gets really hot. And so we get to Kelowna. Before we get to Kelowna, we got a message from one of our partners saying, "Hey, are you willing to go to this baseball diamond in Kelowna?
Mm.
Because there's a family there that a coach who was one of the most beloved baseball coaches for these teenagers, committed suicide last year. And would you be willing to go there and spend some time with the kids? And they're doing an event, a 1 year anniversary thing at the baseball diamond." I was like, yeah, of course. So we took a rest day that day to do that. And that was extremely impactful because it helped me understand why I was doing this.
Mm.
And all the other noise about like, oh, what are people going to think, this, that, and the other. Mitch's story, Mitch's family, helped us really lean into what we were trying to do. And so we got there. Mitch was the brother, the older brother who's still alive, who organized everything. And as he, went out there, man, I'm a dude, man. Like I'm just a guy running. And they were really, what's the word? They were extremely impacted by what I was doing. And then I ended up speaking to one of the teams, the kids there, and it was like a boys baseball softball team, and it was like sharing my message with them, and and then that family went on to continue raising money for mental health for men. I think they raised like $30,000 for another organization, but that's another story, man. Like I'm just some random dude, no connection with these people at all. I started doing something, and it resonated with them. They wanted me to show up, but they impacted me just as much as maybe I impacted them. That's just one story of like hundreds.
Amazing, man. It's so interesting what happens when you take a moment to just stop and listen, right? I mean, I stop and listen every day, which is very beneficial to me. But I think, you did it in a way where I feel like what you did just resonated so much because, like you say, like you're just the dude running, like, and that's probably the greatest thing because everybody feels like they should be able to connect to you because everybody has a moment where they could all just be a dude or dudette running, right? Like there's nothing that separates you from anybody in that regard. But I think that's what makes it so special because people wanted to connect with you because they felt like you'd probably get them the most. Like there's even a disparity, in professional health. You have clients come in who like want them, they'll sit with a therapist and they want their therapist to think they're cool. So they withhold information or, there's this fear of judgment because, you're a professional and things and maybe you have a better understanding, but like you take away a lot of the angst by just being the guy that's just there. Like I'm just a dude running. And it's like, yeah, like you could probably get what I'm going through. And so I like what you're doing, especially because I feel like it builds a real foundation for actual mental health to have real conversations with real people. And I think it's such a beautiful thing because it takes away all the defenses, takes away all of it. Nobody has to sit there and wonder if you're judging or this or that. Like you're there. You're just present.
Yeah. Listen, man, it's that. Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think also I'm being vulnerable too, man. I'm pretty straight up with people, what I've been through and my experiences. And I'm no different than like a lot of men have gone through what I've gone through. I would say majority of them.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, if someone is, I'm having a conversation, they know a bit about my story or they've looked it up or whatever. And right off the bat, we're all on the same playing field, right? And they feel comfortable to share more if they want to.
Right.
And I'm not judging it. Like I say straight up, man, like I'm not here to judge you, man. I'm just as flawed, if not more than others. I've made more mistakes. I've made all the mistakes. So who am I to judge, right?
Right.
And I never used to be like that. I had to go through something to kind of get to this place.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people understand that too. So, and I guess there's an element of, people seeing someone do something physically challenging that maybe elevates that person in their mind. But the reality is anyone can do what I've done and probably do it better if they wanted to.
Well, you never know. You never know. Because we're all born with whatever that is that we have within us that we're supposed to discover and uncover and present to the world. And I mean, I think the same way as you. I don't think I'm much better or smarter than anybody. I think I just maybe take a little more action than most people, but I feel like I'm probably not. I'm not that great. And that's fine though. I think that's the way we should all be. We should all be realizing like there is something special about our existence, but there's nothing inherently special about most of us to the point that like we are anomalies, that nobody could do this. Like we're all so much more capable than we believe.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that 1,000%. Absolutely. Yeah. For sure.
I have to ask you, because obviously we're getting close to the end here. And I mean, I feel like there's still so much more we could talk about. Like this, I don't even think the podcast does it justice. It's just, we've been going 48 minutes and still not enough time. But
Yeah, we could always do it again another time. Maybe when you come to Vancouver, you come on my podcast.
I would love that. That'd be awesome. Are you kidding me? Pod swap. You heard it here,
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah, man.
So I want to ask now, the name of the podcast is called Marked, and the premise being that there are a few different marks that are left on us. You've been building something, and the curiosity is, what is the mark that you've walked away from in the mission, in what you've been building? What is a mark that you've been left with?
I'm grateful, man. I don't know how else to explain where I am today. The permanent mark that is on me is gratitude to the people who've been in my path, who've helped me become who I am today. And look, I'm not done, obviously, but man, the where I find myself is so fortunate that I was fortunate enough to create something out of nothing with people around me who aligned and believed in what I was doing. And with their support and help and guidance, I wouldn't be here, man. And so I'm grateful. That's what I'm marked with.
I love it. And then I guess if anybody's been listening, they probably have an inkling as to what this answer will be. But what is the mark that you're aiming to leave on the world?
The old me would have a real egotistical kind of answer. The new me is I just want to do my best, man, and create impact from my own efforts. And so what mark that leaves, I don't know, but I just want to do my best and be a positive influence in some capacity in the world.
I love it. And most important, how can people get connected to you? Where can they find you? How can they learn more about your stuff? Maybe get involved in donations. Like, please give everybody everything. And obviously it'll be in the show notes too, but
For sure.
Tell them.
Yeah, I mean, I got a website. It's suchinmotion.com. And it's going to be getting updated. So right now it's talking about the run across Canada, but we're working on updating it. But it's still there. And my Instagram, Such in Motion. So it's at such.in.motion. And YouTube at Such in Motions. We've got a podcast also on Spotify and on YouTube. The podcast is called The Long Run Podcast on Spotify. And then on YouTube, it's my YouTube channel, Such in Motion. You can find it there. And I just wanted to kind of like share a couple things that are kind of unfolding over the next little while, just to kind of drop a little thing in terms of like the future sort of goals. My path is kind of determined in the sense of like, I'm just going to keep leaning into what I do and raising awareness and funds for mental health, men's mental health is kind of where I'm gravitated towards now. And so I'm planning a big fundraiser in the third quarter of this year, anywhere from August to November, still dialing that in. And the goal is to have the first ever live stream 24-hour run on a track in Canada, where I'll be on a track for 24 hours, going to live stream it. And the goal is to make it like a festival type of event, food trucks, cold plunges, this, that, and the other. And I'm hopeful that we can make a partnership with one of the leading men's charities in the world. And so we'll see. I got a meeting in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how that turns out. But if that works out, then that'll be the plan. And then ultimately my final kind of, well, not final, but this is all leading towards 2028, where I want to attempt to run from the north of India to the south of India, be the oldest person to ever do it. And so do that for also mental health. So that's kind of the 2-year sort of plan, what's going on in my world. And if anyone wants to track and see what's going on, feel free to jump on my socials.
I love it. I think everybody should be checking you out, even just to understand what's going on, because obviously you're doing a lot of really cool things. I like the 24-hour festival idea. That's a pretty crazy one. And man, the run across India sounds, I don't know, that one sounds scarier to me than anything. So I am definitely curious to see that one happen.
That one will be a logistical nightmare, but we'll figure it out.
I love it, man. Well, guys, gals, there you have it. My man, Sachin Motion. You got to go check out his socials. You got to follow his journey. It's been one hell of an incredible one, and it is going to shape up to be even cooler. Don't forget to go check out his podcast, because eventually I'll be on there when I'm in Canada. But dude, it was so great hearing your story. Definitely looking forward to just continuing to build our friendship, learn so much more from you. Perhaps, as we were talking about this too, people, we might even be going and running a Spartan together. He's probably just going to carry me the whole way through, so we'll have a video of me on his back. But
It'll make it happen, man. You just let me know when even if you want to do a half marathon, whatever it is, man, you drop me a line and we'll figure it out.
100%. Dude, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate you.
Man. I appreciate you having me on, man, and thanks for everything. You're doing some great work too, and this is a two-way street, man. I appreciate your wisdom and your information and your friendship. So let's keep building.
Hell yeah. Well, there you have it, folks. Another great episode of the Mark Podcast in the book. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you thought of today's episode. Let us know if you're getting in touch with my man Satch, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.
See ya.